Good morning, Think Teachers. I'm here interviewing Libby Edmonds of Equilibrium this morning. She's already done, I hope you haven't missed her webinar that she did earlier. And her focus is really for teachers teaching from the heart with an emphasis on how we harness EQ skills. Morning, Libby.
Morning, Kim. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for inviting me to the Think Teacher platform once again.
It's my pleasure. Today, I've harnessed you for the well-being side, although I think your first webinar had to do with that as well, teachers' well-being. But really, given what teachers have been through and the demands that have been placed on them, really today we're going to focus on managing stress for teachers. And Libby, perhaps you just tell us how this ties up with what you do.
Thanks, Kim. Yes, I'm delighted to speak about this subject, particularly at this time of the year. It goes without saying that the last 2 years have brought so much stress to everybody all over the world, but particularly to teachers. And if I recall back to my own teaching experiences, I'm sure you can too, the beginning of the year brings with it a whole lot of other stresses. And on the back of what teachers have already had to deal with, it really will be great to talk about how some simple tools and skills that they can use to learn to implement to manage stress. At this time of the year, getting classrooms ready, staff meetings, placing kids in various classes, that sort of anticipation about the new children coming in, the parents, maybe having to change a class, deal with new colleagues. The stresses just mount up. And simply put, stress means that the problem is bigger than your available resources. So I just want to say that again. Stress means that the problem is bigger than your available resources. What resources do we need as teachers to cope going forward in 2022? And research will show that when we reframe how we think about stress, we can improve it. Stress is there in our lives. To be a human being means to be exposed to stress. But when we have a better understanding of how we react, of our negative patterns, how we self-sabotage, we can move forward more positively. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is really about how mental fitness can help us cope and manage stress better. So, Kim, if you think about being physically fit, if you're not physically fit and you were climbing a steep hill, you would feel the effects of it. You would not be able to breathe properly, maybe get tired, have to sit down, maybe get blisters, all sorts of things. Now, if you're not mentally fit, you're going to experience this mental stress. And that comes out in the form of anxiety and frustration and happiness as you try and handle your work and your relationships in life. So this is important that we develop the tools how to handle this mental fitness so that we can show up and perform better, we can have improved well-being and mental health and better relationships. And you know, there's been so much written at the beginning of the year about New Year's resolutions and what we're going to do going forward in 2022. And research will show that only 20% of individuals and organizations actually succeed in reaching their goals. And research also shows that this is because of the mental fitness that is required to reach those peak performance goals. Any comments on that?
So I think really, Libby, what I'm hearing you saying is we're working, it's part of building a resilience in teachers that enables them not to dip so low in those times of stress. And we know they come. I mean, I love your definition of not having the required resources. And I know teachers feel the resource of time is always tight, never mind money. But I think that's always going to be a factor. So it's how we deal with it and how we manage it. I mean, one of the things I saw in your presentation is that the word perfectionism, and I wondered if you wanted to just comment on that in terms of how that exacerbates the stress that we feel.
Absolutely. So perfectionism comes, the underlying reason for perfectionism is fear, the lack of not being good enough. And this is where our self-sabotaging comes in. So our mind can be our best friend, or it can be our worst enemy. And I think it's safe to say that many teachers fall into this category of constantly pushing themselves to be better. And at the beginning of the year, it comes with that judge. Have I done enough? Am I good enough? Is my classroom okay? It's not as good as Mr. So-and-so. You're feeling exhausted and overwhelmed before you've even started the year. So we all have this judge. Doesn't matter who it is. We all have this judge in our head, this self-sabotaging voice. And when we have an understanding of our mental fitness, we'll be able to realize that this judge is part of our survival. And somebody who's a perfectionist maybe had to develop those skills to survive in their early years. And being neat and organized and prepared is good. But when we take it to the extreme, it has lots of negative effects for us and can exacerbate our stress levels terribly. So the judge is the one that's saying, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with our circumstances? And the perfectionist falls under the category of the stickler. So we have what we call 9 saboteurs that work along with this judge. We all have different ones that are stronger in our personality. So you might be the avoider and put off doing those important tasks. You might get restless and need to move around between lots of different activities. You might be a victim. You might be hypervigilant or hyper-rational. But for today's purposes, I'd love to talk about the stickler, who is the perfectionist. And the perfectionist has this need for order and organization, which is good, but just takes it too far. And in my work that I do, I see a lot of teachers as sticklers. And some of the characteristics are they like to be punctual, methodical, they can get irritable, intense, opinionated, sarcastic, they can be highly critical of themselves and others. They have a strong need to control and be self-reliant. They work overtime to make up for other sloppiness, and they're highly sensitive to criticism. Their thoughts, right is right, wrong is wrong. I know the right way. If you can't do this perfectly, don't do it at all. Often they judge others for having standards that are too slack. They say to themselves in their thoughts, these perfectionists, I need to be more organized, I need to be more methodical, and they hate mistakes. The feelings that the perfectionist has is this constant frustration and disappointment with self and others for not living up to the high standards that they set. So think about those feelings. If you're walking around constantly judging yourself, living up to these standards that you feel that you have to meet, judging everybody else around you that's not meeting what you think they should be meeting, what is your stress level going to be if you have the stickler
Absolutely.
as part of your saboteurs?
Absolutely.
So I speak from experience. The stickler is one of my highest saboteurs. And the impact, the lie that the judge, that we've got this neural network that is so entrenched in our brain that says, you have to do this. This is your personal obligation, that it's up to you to fix up whatever you encounter that is not a mess. It tells you that perfectionism good, and it makes you temporarily feel better about yourself. There's usually a clear right and a wrong way to do things. And the stickler says, I know how to do things, should be done. And they have to be done like this. Now, the impact on others when you have this perfectionism is that it causes rigidity. It reduces flexibility in dealing with change and other different styles of saboteur. It's a source of ongoing anxiety and stress and frustration, causes resentment, anxiety, self-doubt, and resignation in others who just think, well, I'm constantly being criticized. They resign themselves to the fact that no matter how hard they work, they're never going to please the stickler. And especially if the stickler is an HOD or a principal or a colleague, it makes it very difficult for those people around them to work with them. So the original function of this stickler, it's often as a result of quietening that constant voice of self-judgment and fear of others by trying to be perfect. So growing up thinking, I'm not good enough, so I've got to constantly push myself. So it was part of your survival, but going forward, do you still need to be so hard on yourself? It's also when you think that if I do what is right, I'll be left alone. I won't be judged. And the perfection I've mentioned, it brings about this temporary relief until you move on to the next thing.
Right.
It might have generated a sense of order, particularly for somebody who grew up in a relatively chaotic family dynamics, and it earned acceptance because you were labeled as the one of always getting things right. And you almost stand out as an unapproachable, perfect child. So although the stickler, as with all the saboteurs, has many good characteristics, when you understand yourself through recognizing your patterns, you can actually see, I'm overdoing my classroom. I've got 10 beautiful posters. I don't need to put up any more. It is good enough. Stop. Now go and focus on something else and see what you can do. But we get onto sticklers, we get onto that hamster wheel, and we drive out of school and we're still thinking, oh gosh, I forgot to do X and I forgot to do Y. And we're overwhelmed and stressed before the first bell has gone of the year.
Libby, I see so many teachers. I see myself in your description. And I want to say that the big plus is that can change. And I love the fact that you're offering a free ebook to teachers on this topic, on this whole topic of stress, with the perfectionism, the stickler as part of it. And then I'm really to the Think Teacher community. I hope that you'll then sign up for Libby's. She's got a 60-minute discovery webinar that you can sign up for her to really walk you through ways that this can no longer imprison you. It doesn't have to hold you forever. So the Think Teacher email address will come up, and Libby will come back to you. But you're welcome in your email just to let us know in the subject line, are you wanting the free ebook, or are you wanting the free ebook and inquiring about the course that Libby has to offer. So this is part of Think Teacher's offering, is that you can be in direct contact with Libby for either a webinar, access to a webinar, or a one-on-one with Libby as well, to invite Libby to be a speaker at your school in any capacity that you want. So I'm hoping that this teaser, certainly for me, Libby, I certainly relate, and I'm sure there's loads of teachers out there who do. So thank you for letting us know about your stress management webinar. Is there anything that you want to wrap up with as a last word to our teachers, our teacher community?
Just to say that EQ is learnable and measurable. And these techniques that one can apply, I'm working very much on developing mental fitness and emotional resilience with my teams and individuals. And in these hectic times, we need to empower ourselves. And just to say to teachers, don't worry. Sometimes it's a fear of, how am I going to be judged? How am I going to be seen? The wisdom lies within you. No way. So please contact me if you feel that this is something relevant for your school. And once again, Kim, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Libby. Wishing you a lovely start to the year. And we'll see more of you. Libby is going to be doing quite regular teasers like this for us and webinars on Think Teacher. So keep an eye out for her. And if you've missed her former one, please do go back in our webinars. And yeah, that was a full webinar that Libby did for us. Please don't miss out on that. So to the Think Teacher community, to Libby, wonderful start to this new year, 2022. May it be a good one. Thank you, Libby.